If you think most defense startups fail because their tech is bad, you're wrong. They fail because they don't understand the game they're playing. They build something cool, they pitch hard, they burn cash, and then nothing. No contact, no follow on, no second chance. If you're a veteran or an engineer thinking, I've got a great idea, why wouldn't the DoD want this episode might save you a lot of time, money, and frustration? Welcome to the Swarm News. This is the show where veterans and engineers talk about defense tech the way it actually works, not the way it looks on a slide deck. If it can't survive real constraints, spectrum, weather, bad data, human limits, we're not interested. I'm Joshua Hill.
And I'm Vincent Lewis. And thank you all for watching our channel. And if you haven't liked, subscribed, or followed us, please do. Before we get into this episode, we want to talk about some things that are changing, some breaking news that I think everybody will want to know. On the 23rd of December, you have a possible ban coming up for DJI. And what this is going to be is that the FCC is looking to put it on the cover list, which means that any future or even past DJI products may be canceled or not be able to be used, which means that if you currently own a DJI drone, you may not be able to use it nor get parts from it. So this is a very important thing that's coming up. Depending on if there is a agency or a Department of Defense area that may come in and decide to audit it, which will maybe allow them to be getting a chance to not be put on that list, well, maybe save them, but likeliness is not right there. All right. So just want to give guys an update because just after doing this recording, the FCC updated their list. We were going to cover everything on it afterwards. It's more important that we get this information out now. As of December 22nd, the day before the due date of the December 23rd update of the FCC cover list for the sUAS, which was supposed to, what we had thought, I think everyone thought was going to be just DJI drones were going to be on. They have made it an update to show also UAS critical components will be covered under this critical component or under this update for the drone. And I guess you can call ban. So if you're not tracking, I put up here on the screen a portion of what that FCC says in regards to the components so you can be able to see it. I'll put a link in the notes below so that you can be able to go to that actual page yourself and get more clarity about what it is. So if you're not aware, you need to know and you need to get aware. This will help you to understand what's coming up next because it's going to impact a lot of people in a lot of ways. If you are definitely into building sUAS between hobbyists and or even as a professional. So again, as of December 22nd, the DJI ban has taken into effect. That will cover any more so future, as of right now, future DJI aircraft, and also covering any UAS critical components. I won't go into the list of it, but you can read it right here. The FCC also has made changes to where they can now retroactively go in and change anything that's been put into the list to be able to be taken off as they need. So understand this is not going to be a simple thing, and this is going to be a massive effect to you. So keep that in mind, and we will cover more of the top information on this as we go forward. With that being said, back to you, Josh.
So here's the uncomfortable truth. Most defense startups fail before they ever lose a contract because they never get close enough to lose one. They don't die in competition. They die in confusion. They don't understand who the customer actually is, how decisions get made, or what requirements really means, or why nobody is returning their emails. And I'll say this bluntly, a lot of our founders confuse enthusiasm with readiness.
And from the engineering side, I see this pattern a lot. When you see a lot of companies who start and provide services, they're providing something, but a lot of times they're not providing a product that's truly what the end user really needs. And when it comes down to being at a place to where you're starting a company that is needed to cover or protect or to support in this case, the military, or in the instance of the DoD, any agency within it, there's a lot that needs to be put into getting that system going. And without that information or without those products being designed in the right way, you could be putting in a lot of time and effort for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, assumption kills companies, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the first failure, solving the wrong problems. This is the number one failure most defense startups deal with, is trying to solve the wrong problems. They build a clever sensor, they have a smart algorithm or a faster widget, but they never ask, who feels this pain badly enough to fight for the funding if no one funds the solution? We've seen this ourselves. Interest, excitement, positive feedback, and still nowhere to go, nowhere to put our product.
Yeah, and this technically shows up overall optimization. Teams optimize their metrics to basically make their systems as best they can to focus on the needs and the accuracy without latency, resolutions without survivability, autonomy without the trust. When you add all those type of situations or trying to meet those needs, you have a lot that needs to go into it. And if you do not really sit down and come up with the best techniques and or the best methods with the best efficiency that you can with what you have at the moment, it just won't work. And you just not reducing your workload, you're adding to your workload and or decision time, and it just becomes noise.
Yeah. And so moving on to failure number two, designing for perfect conditions. This one drives operators absolutely crazy. Startups design for clean spectrum, perfect comms, complete data, cooperative users. However, startups aren't the only ones doing this. This is also an issue that is from the major companies as well. This is not just a startup. Operators need to be involved much more often. But the problem with all of that clean data and clean comms and perfect complete data that doesn't exist in the real world. In reality, data arrives late, comms degrade, input incomplete, and decisions still have to happen. If your system collapses when things get messy, it doesn't belong near a real mission.
Yeah, exactly. If your system can't make it through having problems where it has degraded systems and still be functional, then your system may not be the right one for a DoD because you need to be able to make it work through any environment that it may run into. Not saying it's going to make it through every last thing, but it should be able to make it through some of the general things because these are systems that are helping to save lives and it's helping to bring in more insight to some situation that they're dealing with. So you can't have it to where you put in a bad signal and it just goes haywire, which in engineering terms, we all know you're not putting this in on purpose. You're not having things that's going to end up being done that way on purpose, but you want to try to mitigate it as much as you possibly can and have it as robust as you possibly can and it be able to meet the capability to meet the mission. And that is the biggest part, meeting the mission and not just a demo. It needs to be something that functions and then meets what the operator, the end user needs.
So, the third biggest thing that new startups deal with is understanding acquisition reality. This one catches even veterans off guard. They assume the DoD works like a customer. It doesn't. There are users, requirements writers, program managers, contracting officers, legal teams, funding authorities. If you don't know who you're talking to or which one of these groups you're talking to, you're not really selling anything. You're talking into a void. We've had strong interest and still hit dead ends because there was no funding.
Yeah. And we've seen this firsthand where we're looking at going in and getting funding and we're not there yet. We weren't ready. And if you are thinking that on the government side, they're going to work to get a grant to you as quickly, or even if you get funded, it's going to be there consistently. Don't bet on it and don't hold your breath because you pretty much will drown if you're in water. Understand the grants that you get and or the contracts that you're running into getting may be able to last for the short time, but they're not going to actually always last forever if you aren't a program of record. So something that you need to know, if you don't know, most of the time, systems that are programs of record will last longer. If you are not that, you're getting funded on a yearly basis at times, and it just depends on what it is and how your contract's labeled. So know that you have growth and time that you can put into something over time, and you can make the best prototype in the world and also think that it meets everything and someone else with a lesser system gets the contract. So You can't put all your eggs in one basket and hope that it'll work. Know that you have to build what you can and have ideas on what you need to meet whatever it is that the need is at the time. Looking at your architecture, what you're building a prototype that meets the need and not overbuilding it, providing the service that's required. And if you know you can meet something that's better than others, you're good. By the time the requirements show up, the systems have to adapt and be able to adapt because battles changes, war changes, life and situations change. And in the realm of sUAS, what you may build today could be something different by next time you see it on the other end in a year or a couple months or even a couple days.
Yeah, I think the next issue that you're going to see that these startups run into, burning cash way too early. This one hurts a lot of people. Startups burn money trying to look established instead of becoming actually useful. Office spaces are being bought, branding, headcount, overbuilt prototypes, as Vince just mentioned, all before the demand is proven. Defense timelines are long. If you burn hot and early, you will not survive how long it takes for DoD to catch up to you.
Yeah, and then think you prematurely scale too fast. You have to think out what you have and how long would it be to make that one. Say you have the one prototype and you go from needing to build one to say 500. You need to know amount of time it takes. If you can take the time to build 10 and see what it is without overdoing it and saying, hey, let's build 100. Unless you have a timeline that's so stringent that you don't have that choice, think that through. The efficiency of you building your systems in a way that allows you to have the growth with the need, you will be able to make it through. Trust me, I've seen it from a small business side to large business sides. And when you only have a certain amount of people to do all the work, it also comes into a place to where you got to be able to manage all your resources. And the proof of concept and the testing that you do prior is what's going to help you to make it to the next level and be able to maintain and make your company more of a benefit and allowed to stay at the price of being able to grow versus just dumping money into a task or to making something and actually adding something to it because you think it's better. If you got a system that works, the bells and whistles can be added at a later state, but make sure that it's a need and you will be fine. And then you'll be able to learn and speed up the process and not just be something that's a for appearance.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's key. So I think the next biggest issue that small startups start off with is ignoring operators. And this one to me is very personal. As an operator, I want my voice to be heard. Some startups don't want any operator input. They want validation. They want someone in uniform to say, "Hey, that's cool. Let's use that." Not that won't survive in real world contact. Operators don't care how clever your system is. They care if it saves time, reduces risk, and works under pressure. If it makes life harder in a skiff, on a flatline, or in a talk, it is dead on arrival and nobody wants to mess with it.
Yeah. And understand the operator's feedback and your engineering feedback, both sides need to be heard. I've been on both sides of that level of where I built a system that I will say I've had a situation where I made a aircraft that had 3D printed motor mounts. In my concept, I thought that the motor mounts would be good enough to last and not worry about, which was what was brought to me by one of the operator, another engineer also. Hey, that's going to melt. And I'm like, no, it wouldn't. And go figure. The situation that was brought to me actually happened. And on the other side, I've seen it to where for me, doing testing, going through doing a bunch of tests on PIDs and making sure that aircraft is up and flowing and working right because we've seen multiple issues on what it needed to be versus what it was doing. And then having to take that same knowledge I had and relate it to another work that I was doing where I saw it, bringing it to an engineer like, hey, this is something that I see needs to be updated and changed, and then providing that information, but being put to deaf ears because it was like, no, it doesn't matter. Not that big of a deal, which it really was. So understand your feedback, and especially on the operator side, because they're the ones using it. The end user, especially the ones who will get it in the operational in the field, are the ones that you really want to know what's wrong, what they are seeing, and if there's some validity to what it is, make sure you take that in and work it. Some engineers, this is just like preaching to the choir. You understand it. But if you are understanding, you're hearing this, understand that it is a necessity for your end user in getting that information. And even if it's via Zoom, if it's being at site, doing site surveys and site missions and doing out and doing test runs and demos, is all great. But when they get into the hands of the user, that's where you really want to be able to see what it is in operation. And it'll help you to bring guidance to what you need to do to be better, save you money in the end, and then provide the ability to complete the mission and make it to where you're not killing a bad idea because you're not in touch with what your mission or what your equipment can really do.
No, yeah, I agree. I think those are important keys. So next, we're going to talk about the next big issue is chasing hype. I mean, AI, autonomy, swarms, digital twins, all real, all useful, all dangerous if misapplied. The DoD doesn't fund buzzwords. It funds solutions that fit the mission. That's why we stay focused on UAS, counter UAS, sensing, and operational relevance.
And when you think about it, sUAS have been around for a very long time now. I started work on this in 2016, and it took until now, it's 2026, where it finally started to realize that the DoD has started to realize that sUAS are a significant threat and that we are behind. So now it is another buzzword, but just like AI has been around just as long. When you really think about Siri, when you think about Alexas, and it may not be your Claudes or your Google Geminis, but they were there to do similar, if not the same type of functions where you could ask and get the information. Whereas the chat GPTs of the world and the Claudes now are providing you more clear services and guidance that you can give on a regular. So the buzzword is something that's necessary, but is it new? And you got to think about when you're adding in these systems, is it really going to help make your system better? Or is it just going to put you in a place to where you're just adding in more complexity to what you're doing? The complexities to what we are seeing in the battlefield is not in regards to just over engineering. It is engineering with a problem that we've seen in insights, such as you have EWs that are being negated, and on the battlefield, they adjusted, making these aircraft run by fiber. So now the next situation is how do you knock out aircraft by fiber? They didn't go super complex. They just went to what was going to be the need to get past the certain problem that they had at the time. And it wasn't AI. It wasn't get an aircraft out and let it fly and go find itself. It was find a hard system or hardware piece of equipment that they could add to their existing systems and make it work. So that's a key that you really kind of need to think about. And again, these may seem simple, but in a lot of times when I've been in the things that I thought were simple, I'm getting for systems from the things I'm working on, like, why? Who thought of this? Example, Humvee with soft skin. In a combat situation, who would want a vehicle that you don't have any armament to? Get to Iraq, and then you start realizing you need it. So it's stuff like that. Under designing and or budgeting, you got to think into the situation. Engineering should serve the mission, not the trend.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's, again, good key points on what we need to look at and how we need to evaluate. But let's talk about now and switch to what actually works. So, what works? Deep mission understanding, early operator involvement, spending discipline, patience with timelines, and humility.
Yeah, from engineering, a modular architecture, simple modes and or simplified ways to identify failure, realistically doing tests and test plans that provide guidance that are to reality of what you're trying to do and not making it over complex and taking feedback fast. Like, all right, this isn't working. But with testing comes, you have to take it with time. So it's not immediate, but if you already see there's a problem, address it or note and make sure that you're doing it after every test of AAR, which basically you're taking in feedback from everybody that was on that test to see what they saw and not just one person. One individual taking it all saying, hey, this is how it goes. When you have everybody else on the field, you need to get their guidance. So it helps you to make sure that what you're doing is working. And the systems can help to resolve the situation and the problems that we have. I guess in simpler words, they evolve versus not.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, if you assume you're smarter than the ecosystem, it will humble you fast.
Yeah, and understand what you make will have to progress along a timeline no matter what. The enemy is going to making their systems work towards getting around yours, or even in the civilian side, other people are going to work to make something that's just as good or if not better than yours. So yeah, staying ahead of the game is good, and being able to have something that's functional and the best and latest and greatest is great. But resilient systems built with users in mind outlast elegant systems with built-in absorbent excess wasn't even needed from the first place.
Yeah. So if this episode felt uncomfortable, good. It's that discomfort that is cheaper than failure. Send this to one of your veteran engineers, send it to a veteran thinking about starting a defense company. If this perspective matches how you think about defense tech, subscribe. This is exactly what we do here every week. We will see you next week.
And have a good one. Talk to you guys later. See you soon.